Starting with structured output and prompt engineering, anyone has prompted a model, and you've likely prompted a model to get JSON or CSV output, right? Anyone here asked the model to output JSON, CSV, something like that? Hands? Yeah? Right? Cool. So if you've done that, you just do it like this. You get the model saying, hey, cool, I'll do that for you, and then you get some JSON. Now, trying to parse this in your code, no, that is quite difficult. You'll have to try to find where the JSON starts, and it's not great. You can tell the model to only output JSON, and it will only output JSON 99% of the time. That 1%, you'll get a crash or an error. So I've mentioned this, and it might sound very obvious to you, but I've talked to so many devs recently that told me they don't use structured output. They just do it by telling the model to only output JSON in the format they want in their prompt, which does work. But there's no validation from the prompting framework. There's no confirmation. It's just luck. And there will happen cases where your code will not work because the LLM will return, sure, I'll do that for you, because they're helpful. To get around that and to be absolutely sure that the output you'll get is JSON in the exact schema that you want, we use structured output. Don't worry about the schema. We'll go into that a little bit later. The whole point, you pass a JSON schema to the model. Most models support this, even Llama 4, Gemma, all of them do structured output to get deterministic output. Because all of our code is deterministic, and that's what matters, right? To get deterministic output to run with our deterministic code. Doing this is quite simple. We put in the structured output model, the schema, we turn it on, and the return we'll get is pure JSON in the exact format that we want. And that way we can run it in our code, and we can make sure everything works. Really important if you want to render UI as well. Prompting models quite simple. Going to prompt Gemini, all you need to do is install a GenAI SDK in any language that you'd like. It exists in pretty much anything, and if it doesn't, you can use the REST API that Google provides. Select the model, give it a prompt, you're good. Now, if you want to pass a schema, I, at least when I work in Node.js, like to define them in TypeScript, because that way I get a little bit of support from the system when I write them. I make sure there's no type errors. I get linting support during build time, and it just makes my life a little bit easier. And we get one huge benefit when we define our schemas instead of using structured output, apart from the benefit of actually getting our schema output. The big benefit we get is we can also define exact descriptions for specific properties. So here we say a start date that we want exactly in this format. Has anyone here worked with dates in any kind of coding languages? Did you enjoy your time, or did you? Yes. Nah, no. Yes. Everyone hates dates, and getting some more predictability in there to know, okay, I'll get year, month, date, hour, whatever, time zone, just makes your life a lot easier, because now I can just pass this to day.js and parsing done, no wondering. Yeah. Continuing to prompting. So I like to prompt in Markdown, but I've actually started to prompt in XML. Anyone here who isn't sure what Markdown or XML is? I think we're pretty technical here, right? Yeah? Anyone who's not a developer?
But I know Markdown.
Cool. XML?
Yeah.
Awesome. So why Markdown? Well, if you look at Google Docs, and if you look at all the best practices that Google suggests, you see plain text. And it makes sense. You can prompt your model in plain text. Just have good instructions and paragraphs and explicitly explain what you want. And many more best practices, like, for example, only having positive statements. As you can see here, for example, we tell it to base every statement exclusively on the details provided by the user. This is a prompt that extracts job experience from a CV. And I could also say, don't invent anything. But what experience shows, and also what providers like Google suggest, is that having positive statements makes the LLM more likely to follow your instructions. So Markdown, in this case, also helps us put more instruction to the prompt. The LLM reading it can save this in the cache while generating more content to recall specific instructions. Different models have different training. For example, Claude apparently works better with XML, while the OpenAI docs state that Markdown is what they like the best. For Gemini, I feel XML works pretty good. Markdown works pretty good. Plain text works pretty good. I started writing a lot of prompts in XML recently. They're a little bit ugly to read, but I find that also for complicated topics where a lot of thinking is involved, that quality can be quite a bit better. I'll leave that to your experimentation.